Now, fast forward recently to Shedeur Sanders, Deion Sanders' son, goes viral, but not for football, but for how he structured his contract. He had an equity clause in his deal with Gatorade. That clause basically said, I'm not just here as a name or a body. I want part of what's being built off of me. I want ownership in the outcome. So that clause essentially just preserved his interest. And he didn't walk away with just a one-time check. He walked away with his corrected status in the contract, and he claimed his equity.
Shedeur Sanders has sold the most amount of jerseys out of any rookie this year.
Shedeur Sanders puts NFL on notice by becoming one of the highest paid players on the Cleveland Browns roster. And yeah, that sentence alone should already sound crazy to you. Because we're not talking about a #1 overall pick, we're not talking about a veteran who just signed a monster extension, we're talking about a 5th-round pick who walked into the league and flipped the entire system upside down before he even played a full season. And here's the part nobody is talking about. This didn't happen by accident. This was calculated, it was planned, and it might change how money works in the NFL forever. Now, let's actually slow this down for a second, because when you hear highest paid, your brain automatically goes to big contracts, guaranteed money, signing bonuses. That's how it's always worked. But what Shedeur Sanders did, it's completely different. This isn't just about salary. This is about structure. This is about control. And this is about a player understanding his value before the league was ready to acknowledge it. While everyone else was debating his draft position, questioning why he fell, he was already building something way bigger behind the scenes. This is where young players usually make a mistake.
He's on a 4-year, $4.6 million deal, which averages about $1.16 million per year. A jersey costs $130, so he'd have to sell about 9,000 jerseys per year or 35,736 jerseys total to pay out his NFL contract.
They come into the league grateful just to be there. They take the standard rookie deal, they stay quiet, and they hope one day they'll earn the big payday. That's the traditional path. But Shedeur didn't follow that path at all. Instead of just signing what was put in front of him, he sat down with lawyers, advisors, and built a blueprint that nobody in the NFL had ever seen before. And that blueprint started with one key idea: ownership. Let's talk about what really changed everything, because this is where it gets dangerous for the rest of the league. Shedeur didn't just negotiate for money, he negotiated for equity. That means his income isn't just tied to a paycheck anymore. It's tied to growth, it's tied to value, and that's a completely different game. Instead of being just another player on the roster, he positioned himself to benefit as the franchise itself grows. And when you start thinking like that, you're no longer just playing football, you're playing business.
A lot of the players don't like the way that Shedeur Sanders was portrayed, because the way that he is around the team has been nothing but positive. They respect what he's done in the community. And first and foremost, they respect that how he is and he treats everybody the same.
Now, compare that to someone like Myles Garrett, who sits at the top of the Browns' payroll through traditional means. He earned it through performance, dominance, years of production. That's the old system working perfectly. But Shedeur's rise, that's a new system being created in real time. And the crazy part is, both paths now exist in the same locker room, one built through football, the other built through strategy. Here's the part nobody is talking about. Shedeur didn't stop at just team-related earnings. He made sure he controlled his image. And that right there might be the most important move of all. Because in the NFL, teams usually have significant influence over how a player's name and likeness are used. But Shedeur flipped that completely. He kept control. He made sure that every brand deal, every partnership, every opportunity flows directly through him.
That Todd Monken has said it multiple times. The players choose their players. The players choose who their leader is. And what he means by that is, there is something that happens in locker rooms that is undeniable. Nature of playing sports is, we know who the dude is. We just know. We play different.
And this is where it gets dangerous, because once you own your image, you're no longer limited by your contract. You're not waiting for your next extension. You're building income in real time. And that's exactly what he did. While other rookies are trying to prove themselves just to stay on the roster, Shedeur is out here stacking deals, building a portfolio that looks more like a business empire than an athlete's endorsement list. Let's break that down, because the names alone tell you everything. He locked in a deal with Nike that wasn't just a standard rookie endorsement. It had performance triggers, escalation clauses, meaning the moment he stepped onto the field, the value increased. That's not normal. That's strategic. Then you look at the move with Gatorade, and this is where it really gets crazy. Instead of taking a flat check like most athletes would, Shedeur pushed for equity. Let that sink in for a second. He didn't just want to get paid once, he wanted a piece of the machine. That means every time that brand grows, every time revenue increases, he benefits. That's long-term thinking. That's generational wealth thinking. And honestly, that's something you rarely see from players this early in their careers.
This is where young players usually make a mistake. They chase the biggest upfront number. They take the guaranteed money and move on. But Shedeur looked at the bigger picture. He understood that ownership beats salary over time. And that mindset alone is what separates him right now. Because while others are earning, he's compounding. And then you add everything else into the mix. Fashion deals, collaborations, partnerships across industries. This isn't just sports anymore. This is culture. This is branding. This is influence. And whether you like it or not, that's where the real money is today. The league might pay you millions, but your brand can pay you multiples of that if you structure it right. Here's the part nobody is talking about. This didn't just happen because of talent. This happened because of awareness. Because Shedeur knew something that a lot of players ignore. Your value isn't just what happens on the field. It's how you position yourself off it. And yeah, you can't ignore the influence of Deion Sanders either. Growing up around that kind of mindset and that understanding of business and branding, it clearly shaped how Shedeur approached his career. Now let's talk numbers, because this is where everything starts to make sense. His base NFL salary? Nothing crazy compared to top players. But when you layer in equity, endorsements, independent deals, suddenly that number explodes. And that's how a fifth-round pick ends up sitting near the top of a roster financially, not by breaking the system, but by redesigning it. This is where it gets dangerous for the NFL, because once one player proves this works, others are going to follow. Agents are going to study this, players are going to demand more control, and teams, they might not like it, because this shifts power. It moves leverage away from organizations and puts it directly into the hands of players who understand business. And let's be real for a second, not everyone can pull this off. That's the truth. This takes confidence, connections, and a clear vision. You can't just walk in and demand equity without bringing value to the table. And that's what makes this whole situation even more interesting. Is this a blueprint, or is this a one-of-one situation? Because here's the bigger question. What happens next? Do we start seeing more rookies pushing for ownership stakes? Do contracts start evolving beyond just salary and bonuses? Or do teams push back and try to shut this down before it spreads? Because once this door is open, it's really hard to close it. This is where young players usually make a mistake. They think the game is just about football. But what Shedeur just showed everyone is that the real game is bigger than that. It's about positioning. It's about leverage. It's about understanding your worth before someone else defines it for you. And now the entire league is watching, because whether people want to admit it or not, this changes things. This forces conversations. This makes front offices uncomfortable. And most importantly, it gives players a new way to think about their careers, not just as athletes, but as assets. So now I've got to ask you, is this the future of the NFL? Are we about to see a wave of players trying to follow this exact blueprint? Or is this something only Shedeur Sanders could pull off because of his platform, his background, and his mindset? And the biggest question of all, if he keeps building like this, are we looking at the first active NFL player who could realistically hit billionaire status while still playing? Because once you start thinking about it like that, it's hard to go back to the old way of looking at contracts.